I'm Keith, and today's a really, really exciting day to me because I get to meet the person who did this wonderful work of art here.
Hello, my name's Shanti Jelmy. This is my drawing entitled Flay, which I was very excited to have included as a finalist in the Busselton Art Award for 2020. It is an ink drawing on paper, and it's about one's place in the world. So this is the kind of drawings that I like to do, where I think about my place in the world and the influences that have been impressed on me and how I have learned to cope with them and make sense of it. So, thank you.
I must say I am really, really excited to be here because of this picture. When I first saw it, I actually walked past it, and then it just caught my eye and I came back because it reminded me of a computer graphic, a computer image from a game, but without the textures over the top. And I'm just wondering whether you had any ideas like that when you started doing this.
I had no ideas like that at all. The way that I draw is I'm just trying to get something down. So I start with just making marks, and the more that I did that to hide a blank page, the more I developed this style of drawing, and it became pretty important for me to connect lines, and it represents to me a connection that we have as people and as beings to each other and to our environments and just to life in general. So I didn't have any ideas of that, any kind of animation or computer generation, but it does turn out to look like I've done it intentionally. Nothing's intentional except the connecting.
It's like when you say the connecting and the life, because it's triangles.
Yeah.
And that's birth, life and death. And at the same time, it's the Father, Son and the Holy Ghost and
It is.
Vishnu, Shiva, Brahma. It's the triangle is the essential power.
Well, triangles are the strongest shape, so I always return to the triangle, and I do think that is because of my background as well, being Indian, but I'm Catholic Indian, and the Holy Trinity is always very important in our teachings and in our life, and certainly in my family life. So while I didn't necessarily I don't think of that necessarily when I draw, it's apparent that it's important to me.
So does the picture sort of take you over? Because like when I look at this, because I can't help seeing it without putting the textures over the top, and I wonder whether you've ever thought of what the textures would look like. Because to me, it's a green animation, a green life thing there, and I'm just wondering, do you see the end shape when you start doing it, or does it just keep growing on you?
It starts in one place and ends up whatever it wants to be. So occasionally I will draw some basic lines and try and stay within them, but then I'll make decisions about what works and what doesn't work, and it's pretty much free flowing. So I don't know what it's going to look like in the end. So sometimes it's just a full page of triangles connected like that, and it might look like a moving a cloth or something like that, and sometimes it turns out into something where I'll stand back and go, where did that come from? Yeah.
So you just sit down in front of the blank piece of paper with your pen and start triangles, and then do you still get sucked into it?
It's quite meditative. So
I guess that's the correct word rather than sucked into it. But yeah.
So while I'm drawing, I try not to listen to too much chatter or things that are going on in the background. I'll very often put in AirPods, headphones, and listen to just music with no words, and just go with it. And quite often it'll be 3 hours later, and I'll go, oh, wow, okay, no, that's not what I wanted, or I don't know where that came from. And I'll try to finish a drawing at a time, but some of the larger works...
How do you know when you've finished? Because to me...
When I get to the edges of the page, basically. So I will... I deliberately leave parts blank in some drawings, but basically I keep going until I reach the corners, as you can see. I've usually got tape around the edges to keep them clean and neat, but they do take a bit of hammering because they sometimes go wherever I go around the studio.
Because the thing is with using triangles is they move. And there's the absolute movement in there's the movement in what you've drawn, but then there's the movement that the person looking at it puts into it as their eyes shift around the thing. And it just gets to me how you can actually sit there and do that.
Well, if you look really closely, you might work out the places where my hand gets tired or where my body gets tired. So this one I probably leaned over and drew. I never draw up on a wall, so I'm quite involved in the piece always. So it goes where my body wants to go and what I'm thinking and how tense I am.
And does going to come on that. When you're tense, do we get smaller bits?
Yes.
And when you're relaxed, we get bigger bits?
Yes, very much.
I just love it. I'm just wondering, if you put a texture on it, what would your texture look like?
Over the top of it?
Yeah.
I think it would probably end up looking more like a landscape than it does now. I can't put colour on it. I don't know.
See, that's how I see it, as a green landscape.
Yeah, moving, just moving. I would like to see any texture moving around it, I think, or maybe in the background and leave that part static. Not sure. So the negative parts and the negative spaces have some texture in them, perhaps.
You will see things that the whole part is the picture, not just the lines, but the parts that don't have lines.
The best thing I like about art is that you can take something completely different from what I intend, and that's perfectly fine. But I think we're quite on sync in the way we think about it.
It's the old semiotics: send a message, receiver.
Yeah.
And as I say, when I first saw it, the message I got was initially a very modern 2021, Battlefield 4 or whatever. But the more I looked at it, the more it became a spiritual, religious sort of thing to me.
It's basically about your place in the world. So your place in the world is going to be different to my place in the world, but everybody can sort of find themselves within something like this, and that's what is important to me.
Yeah.
That connection. So, and it's dynamic and always changing.
That's what I think the spiritual side is for me, is because I do see it as green.
That's okay.
It's like I always think that black and white photography has more colour in it than colour photography.
Yeah, right.
And in this, I just see so much colour in it, and it is a sort of spiritual colour to me. That the pastures and it's not pastures, but it's landscape to me.
It also could be the body. So, because landscapes and the body are often mirrored in the way that they look and the way that they interact. So, I feel that I can see that as well. Yeah. To
me, because I can see body in there too, and I can just immediately stop having green, and I can actually immediately put the textures of a human body in there. It's amazing how it works. I just think that's why I was so excited to meet you, is because I just find this work it's really, really effective.
I think maybe we should do a collaboration then. I think maybe I should give you a basis, and then you could do something and we could
I just wonder when we get to these bits here, which are so tense, that must have been when somebody was making a noise in the background or something.
Yeah, quite possibly. I often work late at night though, so when it is quiet in the house. So in my studio there's a studio, and then there's my house, and in the house is where I want to be, where my family is. So I tend to bring everything inside, and much to everybody's annoyance, nobody touch anything here, so it probably was a very quiet time, and I think when things start to touch and join, that stresses me a little bit. So when it gets messy and it's not clean and neat. So although that would have been a tense part for me, it turns out probably the most beautiful part. I think.
To me it is, because that's where, I don't know, if you're looking down a gorge or something, and to be honest, I can look down and see a gorge, and you see how everything get so close together at the other end of the gorge.
So I would see, when you're talking about textures, I would see water coming from there.
See, that's what I'm doing here. Is, I come from a place that has a really lovely gorge made by a river, and that's what it reminded me of. Was as you look down the gorge, it seems as though the plants are getting smaller and closer together, and the trees are getting smaller and closer together, and in the middle there's this gush of light coming through.
Yeah.
It's blue, and that's how I see this. I just think it's absolutely amazing.
Oh, that's great.
So it's just so exciting to see and where these boundaries here meet. I don't know, because it seems as though you must have you have this getting smaller and smaller and closer together boundary, and then suddenly it just explodes open.
Just like real life.
Yeah.
Everything goes along swimmingly, and then boom, something happens. So, yeah, it does make it. It just feels real to me. This is a very big part of who I am, even though you might not see that in me, but that's basically me on a piece of paper.
See, that's how I feel. It's the good thing about art that works is when you look at it, it's a human being there.
Yeah. So for me, the lines are lines of repetition. Patterns might be behaviour or language or things that we do over and over and over again, which normalise behaviour or things for us. So that's why I employ repetition so much and pattern. So.
And it's like human nature too, because although the repetition, there's actually no triangle reproduced.
No, they're never the same.
Every single one is different. It's sort of like, if you're an alien, I guess, and you look at humans, we're all the same.
Yeah.
But if you're a human and you look at humans, we're all totally different.
Yeah.
And every single triangle in the entire match is so completely uniquely different, and yet so totally interconnected with every other one. It's just a fabulous, fabulous work, I think.
Oh, thank you.